This is the Yacht Lounge podcast. Welcome aboard.
Welcome on board. Today we are charting a course into the wake of one of 20th century's most singular figures, Gianni Agnelli, known globally as the patriarch of Fiat, the icon of Italian style. This deep dive is exploring his other life, maybe his most authentic life, the one lived entirely at sea.
Right. On land, Agnelli was all about suits, corporate strategy, impeccable fashion. But aboard his yachts, he shed all of that.
He became someone else.
Exactly. Our mission today is really to understand how he took his legendary impatience, his demand for absolute elegance, and translated all of that into a sailing life where freedom wasn't just a concept, it was an art form.
That's a really critical distinction. I mean, the boardroom demanded hierarchy, structure.
Total structure.
But the sea, for him, demanded total, immediate spontaneity. He used the water as this incredible stage for his nonconformity.
He really did. And that nonconformity is what turned these simple moments into icons.
Yeah.
You look at photos of Agnelli at sea, they don't look like holiday snapshots. They look like a manifesto. His commitment to that absolute freedom meant rejecting pretty much every traditional maritime expectation.
Okay, so let's unpack that philosophy of freedom, starting with his actual behavior, because this is where the contradiction between the high-powered executive and the insatiable sailor is just so stark.
It is. He was a man who commanded this massive corporate respect, but completely refused to play the part of wealthy gentleman on vacation.
The famous visual is often just, a simple towel draped over his shoulder, sunglasses, the story.
Those razor-sharp quips.
Exactly. But the stories about his impatience with formality are what really define the legend.
That impatience became his signature move. I mean, why bother changing? He was famous for diving into the sea fully dressed.
Still in his jeans, right?
Sometimes in jeans, sometimes even in tailored trousers, with distinguished guests right there on the deck. And these weren't accidental dips.
No.
They were a monumental assertion that the immediate impulse, the thrill of the moment, it trumped all the rules.
It speaks to a man who lived entirely on his own terms. And that must have required some intense discipline from everyone around him.
Absolutely. His pursuit of wind and speed was relentless. Alfredo Aloci, his chief bosun for over 3 decades.
35 years, yeah.
He recalled that if Agnelli announced, "I'm on my way," the entire crew mobilized instantly. Didn't matter what time it was, what the weather forecast said.
They were pursuing the possibility of speed.
That's it. He wasn't looking for quiet contemplation. He was seeking the edge. He would intentionally steer toward difficult conditions.
And that intensity, it sometimes led to these moments of, unexpected humor. It revealed his underlying swagger. I'm thinking of that story off Corfu.
Oh, that one's perfect. It sums up his nonchalance completely.
So set the scene.
Okay, so the wind is strong. Agnelli is pushing his own yacht hard. He sees a smaller sailboat, a Swan, and they are clearly struggling.
Right.
The Swan's skipper is stressed, probably worried about a collision, and he yells at Agnelli not to come any closer.
Agnelli?
Totally unperturbed. He just asks calmly if they need help. The skipper says no pretty emphatically, and Agnelli just smiles, his face already soaked, and says, "Good. With this wind, today's going to be fun."
And then just sails on.
Just sails on, leaves them struggling in his wake. For him, the conditions that cause anxiety for other people were exactly what made the day worthwhile.
The fun, the speed, the risk. That was it.
And that spirit wasn't just in his behavior, it was engineered into every single vessel he owned.
His fleet wasn't just a collection of assets.
No, it was a physical, aesthetic manifesto. He demanded technical innovation and speed because those were the ultimate expressions of his personal will.
So before all the high-tech composites, this manifesto began with the Agnita. A 25-meter yawl, he sailed from 59 to 84.
A magnificent boat.
And what was the first, most glaring sign of his nonconformity on this classic yacht?
It was the sails. In a deeply traditional era where canvas was expected to be rigorously white.
A symbol of purity, of tradition.
Right. Agnita flew deep red sails, often described as wine-colored. For Agnelli, this was no different than wearing his watch over his shirt cuff. It was a conscious rejection of the rulebook.
It was his brand. Then came Capricia.
A Sparkman and Stevens design. Pure performance. She won the Fastnet race in her debut year, 1963.
And he kept her for 3 decades before donating her to the Italian Navy. A great transition from private passion to a national legacy.
A classy move. But the next boat, Extra Beat in 1988, this is where the story shifts from just aesthetic rebellion to a full-on technological obsession.
36 meters of pure speed from Abbey King and Rasmussen.
And when you talk about cutting edge, that boat had this liquid technology. It could pump 6 tons of water into its ballast tanks in under 60 seconds.
Okay, stop there. Why was that so revolutionary at the time?
It goes right back to his need for control and instant response. Ballast tanks let you adjust the boat's center of gravity, being able to shift 6 tons of ballast in under a minute. It means the boat can adjust its trim and stability almost immediately. It maximizes speed and minimizes risk. It gave him fingertip control, translating his own impatience into engineered reality.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
If he couldn't wait for the wind, he wasn't going to wait for the boat to stabilize.
Not a chance.
But speaking of control, this is where we hit that incredible, almost possessive paradox. When he sold Extra Beat, he imposed a very unique condition.
The condition was staggering. He stipulated that the new owner was forbidden from ever sailing her in the Mediterranean.
Wow.
He considered the Mare Nostrum, RSC, his exclusive aesthetic domain. He tolerated no overlap.
But wait a second, doesn't that monumental restriction completely contradict the whole theme of his life, which was absolute freedom? He's literally restricting someone else's freedom.
It seems like it, but not in his mind. For Agnelli, freedom wasn't universal. It was the freedom to define his own rules, even if those rules imposed limits on others. He dictated the stage, even after he'd left it.
That's an even bolder way of looking at it. And that singular focus, it reached its ultimate expression with Stealth in 1996.
The name says it all. Total obsession with velocity. He went straight to German furs with demands that were blunt.
What were they?
The boat must be black, named after the fighter jet, and finished in 6 months. It was almost entirely carbon fiber, with the single indulgence of a teak deck.
And the performance was legendary, bordering on terrifying, right? The loads on the hull were 2.5 times higher than a typical yacht.
Stealth was built to fly, not sail. She set the Marseille-Carthage record in '98, averaging a stunning 15.77 knots, and later won the 2001 Fastnet race.
And yet, what truly separates Agnelli from any other competitive owner is that he didn't even go to the prize giving at the Royal Yacht Squadron.
He didn't care about the trophy, the applause, the result. That wasn't the point. His victory was achieved the moment the engineering worked.
When the boat touched water and did what he demanded.
Exactly. The silverware was just extra, superfluous.
That attitude transitions us perfectly to his larger legacy, putting Italy on the global sailing map with the Azzurra project, their first serious challenge for the America's Cup.
And this wasn't a sudden idea. It was decades in the making. What's fascinating is the pivotal moment that planted the seed way back in the 1960s.
Right. He'd been thinking about it since 1960. And the spark came when he was sailing in Newport with John F. Kennedy.
That's the connection. Sailing with JFK in Newport, the home of the America's Cup. You have to imagine that scene. 2 men defined by youth, power, a willingness to take risks.
And Kennedy himself was a committed sailor.
For sure. So being there at the spiritual home of the Cup with the president, it must have galvanized Agnelli. It transformed the idea of competing into a national imperative, a way to showcase Italian style and engineering.
So that experience planted the idea, but the Azzurra project was actually born from a pre-dawn phone call with the Aga Khan in the early 80s.
It was. And in classic Agnelli style, he agreed to back it, but with shrewd pragmatism. He had 2 main concerns.
1, he didn't want to foot the entire bill.
Knew it could be a financial sinkhole. And 2, he worried Italy just didn't have the know-how to compete yet.
So he acted as the orchestrator, he assembled the team, the sponsors, and he only contributed 1/18 of the budget.
A collective national effort, but it needed his charisma to pull it off. But he did break one of his own rules during the build.
The secret sails.
Yep. There was a strict pact that only the crew could sail the boat, but he couldn't resist. He was frequently sneaking out for sails off Porto Cervo.
He just had to feel the speed of the machine he helped create, and Azzurra's debut was stellar.
For a first attempt, magnificent. They finished 3rd in the Louis Vuitton Cup. They won 24 of 49 races. They didn't win, but the mission was accomplished. One of the leaders said, "We didn't make fools of ourselves."
Which was the precise Agnelli goal.
Put Italy on the world stage with style.
So if we synthesize this entire life at sea, the boat was truly his stage, and the wind was his currency.
Absolutely. He translated the wind's unpredictability into a complete lifestyle. He would only sail when there was wind. If calm set in and bored him, he would immediately leave the yacht.
Life had to move at his pace. And that demand connects all those famous quirks, doesn't it?
It all feeds into the same idea.
The clothed dives, serving champagne and anchovies to formal guests. A shocking but elegant rejection of the expected.
It all comes from the same place. Style for him wasn't a pose, it was an inner necessity, a demand he placed on himself and his entire environment. His life was a masterclass in making freedom an art form.
A profound and fast journey. To recap, Agnelli's freedom was defined by impulse and speed. We saw it in the red sails, the technological leaps of extra beat, and that astonishing possessive demand to forbid that boat from ever sailing the Med.
And of course, the fact that the whole dream of Azura started decades earlier, sparked by a sail with JFK. This deep dive really shows us that true style isn't about winning every trophy. It's about consistently translating your personal will, your impatience, your desire for speed into aesthetic and engineering reality.
He achieved legendary status because he forced reality to bend to his will. He didn't wait for the tide or the formalities, he just dove in. So as you go about your day and you consider the different stages of your own life, we might ask ourselves, what is the single non-negotiable condition we would impose on our own environment to ensure that our absolute freedom remains intact?
Join us on Substack, where Yacht Lounge continues.